welcome to the Erica Glessing Show, brand newly minted for 2020. I am so excited to talk about creativity this year, and my next guest is highly creative. She kind of breathes, walks, and talks art. And she is from Belgium, but she lives in California now. We're actually in the same time zone. I'm so happy to have you with me. Welcome, Sieglinde Van Damme. How are you?
I'm good, Erica. Thank you for having me. How are you?
Did I say that right? You can say it again.
No, it's perfect. Sieglinde Van Damme. You nailed it.
Sieglinde, I met through the polka dot group that I'm in, and I am going to let you just, if you don't mind, share a little bit about, before we jump into your stories, tell us a little bit about the art that you wear. Tell us just a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah. So I've been an artist for almost 2 decades, and it was all about creating new realities and fostering fluid identities. And without going too deep into that story, after 17 years, all of a sudden I realized that if people could wear my art, the story of identity and new realities that I've been exploring for almost 2 decades came full circle, because when people wear my art, which is for the art to wear predominantly photographic based. So if they wear my photo art, then my work serves their identity instead of me controlling what goes on in my work. They reinterpret it, and I love it. And I love seeing how they reinterpret it and make it their own.
That's amazing. This is just the real thing. I want everyone to know she is the real thing. In case you're curious, like what a creative is like, this is the real thing. So I'm just really excited to have you here. But we're going to talk about a time when it wasn't going that well. So why don't you tell me about that? Well, tell us about a time when things weren't flowing and the creativity was not working and you were feeling like you just weren't fulfilled. And then what happened to change that?
Absolutely. So I first want to make a distinction, because I'm an artist, between the visual creativity and the non-visual creativity. In my studio work, the visual creativity, I don't really get blocked, but I do get uninspired.
Okay.
And then it's time to do something else, even if that means cleaning up my studio or go sit on the couch and read a book and go talk to people and be re-inspired. However, creativity, as you said, I live and breathe creativity. I think creativity is a way of life. And of course, I'm only human, and I've ran through some fun roller coasters. One was when I was going through divorce, and then having to pay my own bills, being stuck in a 9-to-5 job that just wasn't fulfilling, and having to,
Even when you say I was in a 9-to-5 job, I can just feel your whole being contract.
So totally. And it wasn't necessarily the work itself. It was just the culture and the way it was done. I was so controlled. There was no room to be creative. I was almost begging, just let me run with this. I can do so much more for you. Just let me go full out. And instead I felt held back all the time.
I can remember that. I think my last totally corporate job was like 1993. So it kind of was a long time ago, but I can remember in meetings knowing how much more I had to offer.
Exactly.
And not being able, like, just because of the cultural constraints, not being able to bring myself fully to it. I remember that.
Yes. And as a creative person, when something sparks and all of a sudden you just want to sink your teeth in, and you can take it to levels beyond anybody's imagination. It's just like a horse that is ready to run the race, right? It's just like, let me out of here. Let me run with this. Let me do it. I will deliver results for you. I will blow your mind.
Wow.
And it's this, even up to the point where it's like, don't worry, like I will not do anything ridiculous. I know where the boundaries are if I have to stick to the boundaries, or I will come ask you before crossing the boundaries. But just this like,
Tell me a little bit now, when you are inspired and you're in your creation mode, like, why don't you talk about the postcard you sent me with that beautiful picture on it? It was a photograph that looked like a painting. Was it a lily?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell our audience? See, I'm so blessed because I've actually met Sieglinde Van Damme in person. Tell us a little bit about that piece of art and what inspired that and how that became.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question. Since we just talked about the job roller coaster, I left my job, and it was I felt completely uprooted because I had taken this huge risk, and now the rug was pulled from under my feet, and worse, I pulled the rug from under my feet. Now what? And so my first instinct was just get out of here. Like, let's get out of my house. Let's go somewhere else. Let's reconfigure. Let's reset. And one of my friends happened to move to Grass Valley 2 weeks earlier, and he said, why don't you come over this weekend? So I threw a bag in my car and a few cameras, and I drove all the way up to Grass Valley. And they were literally still in boxes, but they had this guest house, and they just threw clean sheets on the bed and some towels. And it was such a gift, right? Like, I left the day after I left my job, I drove over there, and it was like I was in a new world, and the new world was open for discovery, and anything could happen and nothing had to happen.
Wow.
And they were on this huge compound, and in the back of the compound there was this koi pond. And so every morning I would stroll out to the koi pond with my cup of coffee, and every evening I would stroll out to the koi pond with my glass of wine, and I would bring my camera. And at one point I started taking photos of the koi pond, but I have a special lens that I use that is low fidelity aesthetic, and sort of I like it because the lens is very temperamental, very unpredictable, and it catches this magic. And when I produced the print, and I made it really large, it's like 40 inches wide by 30 something inches high, and the way the sunlight is dancing on the water lilies on the pond completely captures the magic of that place and the magic mindset I was in, like in these in-between worlds, right? I closed one door, but I hadn't stepped to the next door yet. And so when I produced this big print, I had it in my living room for a few days, just to live with it and see, is this what I want? Does it need something else?
Mm-hmm.
And my house is like a fishbowl. I have lights, I have windows everywhere, and I have sunlight everywhere because that's what makes me feel happy and good. And what I didn't realize that, so the light played on this photograph. And then at one point I realized the sun had set, it was dark outside, and it felt like the sun was still dancing on the water lilies in my living room. It was so beautiful. And
I love that. I just got chills when you said that. And I guess I just want to tell people who are listening what I'm hearing, the message that I'm getting, because I'm always getting messages for humanity, is really allow the magic to come in. Allow that magic. And if you do believe that there is something better for you, there is something better for you.
And you know what? I think this word allowing is huge, because a lot of my journey has been about letting go of control, which is also why I use that one particular lens, because I can't control a darn thing.
Yeah.
And that's when you allow, and because sometimes I will do something randomly and it comes out great, and then I want to recreate it or do it in the same way but differently, and then the magic is gone.
I totally know. I know exactly what you're talking about. If I'm working on a book and I let the book come in and I don't try to tell it what to do, it comes in so amazing. But if I sit there and try to say, okay, I'm going to do 12 chapters and I'm going to take people from, like I try to do a nonfiction book about a topic. If I'm too controlling, it turns out so boring. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't end up writing the book because I can see that it came in so awful. But if
Yeah.
I do this thing where I'm just like curious, like I'm working on a creativity book, of course, right now. And it's like, I'm curious because one of the chapters was called Pain. Isn't that strange?
Pain.
Pain. Because
Whoa.
it was like sometimes we jug ourselves with pain to create change in our lives. And so it was about like, not it all, because creativity sounds like it's all sunshine and roses.
No,
But
it's not.
sometimes, sometimes it comes along with some other things. So that was really interesting, Sieglinde. I wish we had like 3 weeks to have this. Same thing happened, I have to tell you guys, when we met in person. Like time went by, it felt like it wasn't even real. Like time went by so
True.
fast. So I did want to give you a little bit more opportunity to share, if you wanted to share a little bit more about what you do and how you can help people. I know you also can help make art in people's rooms, and so I don't know what you'd like to share to the people who are listening, but go ahead and tell us a little bit more about Sieglinde's art world and what you like to do with people.
Yes, so my current business has 3 layers. So obviously there is still the artwork, and I am still on my journey, which will never end on creating, but in the sense of allowing, being curious, and most importantly, just letting go. Um, and it's going to become more by hand again, instead of the controlling photographic digital work. Then, and of course I sell those artworks, and anything that is digital can actually be custom printed to size to fit an empty wall space in your home, which is something that painters can't do. They would have to make an entirely new commission for you. And then of course the art to wear, I'm hoping this can take on a life of its own, because people
It really does. Your art, your skirts, they're just so curious. Like they just look so unique. Like you can't, and it's really interesting the way, like you said, the way that people wear them, because they look different on different people.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's the whole point. Unique is the right word. And it's, especially in a time when we all want to embrace diversity. Diversity technically means embracing everybody's individuality. So why not your own? Why keep wearing mass produced? I mean, dare to wear this unique piece and let the mirror reflect to you what you already knew was on the inside. Stand out from the crowd. Be and own who you are.
I love it. Well, I'm so glad you stopped by the Erica Glessing Show. It was so much fun having you, and I could talk to you forever, but let's let people find out more on their own. So how can they reach you, and how can they discover and see some of your work?
Yes, so they can go to my website, which is www.studiosieg.com. That has my art and my art to wear. And then there's also the 3rd layer of my business, which is actually a coaching and mentoring component, where I help you implement creative ID strategies in your life. And that will be launched on sieglindevandamme.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you could come.